Our guest tonight is Camille James Harman. Camille is a public speaker regarding the so-called alien abduction phenomena. She was a contributing editor at UFO Magazine, where her articles were published from 2000 to 2004. You know, I'm going to let Camille talk about her life and her husband. We're going to have her husband on the show. Her husband is Jeff Harman. He's a professional astrologer known worldwide.
Cool.
But her bio reads so interesting, and I want to hear it from Camille.
Yeah.
So without any further delay, let's go ahead and bring Camille on the line. Camille, good morning, or good evening, I should say. Welcome to K-Talk and the Fringe Radio Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Well, thank you. We were rolling there a lot about Star Trek. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. It made me laugh about Richard Simmons because he's from New Orleans and I'm from New Orleans. So.
Yeah, we were talking about it. It was like, what in the heck is he going to be doing at Comic-Con?
I know, it's a little
Who
strange.
knows?
It's so sad.
Well, Paula Dean's even more strange.
Well, yeah.
To be there, because what is she going to make?
She's going to cook.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. No,
It'll be fun
but it
to
was
see
just,
how it
was.
worked out.
When we attended the September, the big event in September, and it was kind of sad, Camille. But Carol and I were both talking. Like we saw Henry Winkler standing there with his gray hair, and he was wearing a checkered jacket. He looked like a cheap used car salesman, and it was like, oh my
it's
God,
so sad.
there's
You don't
the
realize
Fonz.
how old we're getting until we
Yeah.
get to know.
I feel old too. I had such a crush on the Fonz.
Me too. That's what I was going to say. I was in love with him. And then the Hulk actually, he didn't look too bad.
Yeah, Lou
he was
Ferrigno
really
looked
good.
great for 63
or
whatever.
You should see that body in real life. He's amazing.
Massive. But yeah, Carol, we were like, she was like, who's that little old man walking around? I said, that's Henry
Well, I
Winkler.
knew who it was. I think I pointed him out to you.
But it was just funny. So
I did too. I had a crush on him too. So
it's sad. This time flies by so quick.
It does. And before you know it, you're the old person.
Yes,
exactly.
And I feel like it today. Anyway, Camille, we're honored to have you on the show tonight. I started reading your bio, but I find this so interesting. I'm going to let you talk about yourself. Why don't you give our listeners kind of the backstory and some of the things that have happened? And we got a bunch of questions sent in. You sent us some topics. We'll talk about that. So go ahead. Go.
Well, sure. I'm 47 years old. I'm from Louisiana originally, and I got involved with the so-called alien abduction experience. It came to my life, as far as I can tell, in 1995. It may have happened earlier, but I'm not really confirming any earlier events than that. I was about 29 years old, I guess, when it happened, and I was living in Los Angeles. And I had moved there in 1995 with a boyfriend. We were both actors. I have a master's degree from University of New Orleans. And, we moved to Hollywood to be actors, my boyfriend and I. And before I had left for that journey, I had picked up a copy of Whitley Strieber's Breakthrough in New Orleans and read it with great interest. And it was one of those compulsive buys. I was walking through a bookstore and saw it and saw that face on the cover and just felt compelled to buy it. And it was a hardcover book, and I spent like $20 on it. And I was so blown away, and it really triggered me, I think, in some way. Because right after I got to Los Angeles was when all this crazy stuff started happening, and my whole life just got turned upside down. So basically that was, wow. I mean, I was just looking at the date. It's like 19 years ago that happened to me.
Wow.
So time flies. And I spent, years and years. I had a bunch of experiences in that time frame, and then I was able to make them stop, thank God. And I was trying to make sense of it for years and years and years. And it was just in this past couple of years when I was writing my memoir of it all that I really pulled it together and came to a conclusion that I'm happy with. And it's been a very interesting, year and a half since that's happened. So that's basically my story. I was a normal person. I want everyone to understand. When this happened to me, I mean, I had no interest in the subject matter until 1995. I had always been interested in the paranormal, but I had no interest in aliens or science fiction and anything like that. And it was very surprising. It was very life-changing when it came into my sphere of reality, and not in a good way. But it's happened to many people.
Well, it has now. Do you? It's just interesting. The first time this happened, this was in New Orleans for you, or New Orleans, as they say.
It was in Los Angeles. It was like right. It was within months of arriving in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened? I mean,
well, basically what happened was, I got to L.A. and I had everything going for me. I had this great boyfriend, and we had this great house, and I had a job, and I had an agent, and I had my SAG card, and I had my master's degree, and I was cocky. I was like, I'm here to, build a career, and I just had it all going. And then I started having all this weird, physical anxiety and heartburn and mood swings. I mean, I didn't know what was wrong with me. And then I noticed that I didn't have a menstrual cycle for 3 months. And that kind of scared me. I was on birth control at the time, and I thought, oh, gosh, And, normally if a woman is late on her menstrual cycle, she'll run down to Walgreens and get a test and be done with it, and find out. But for some reason I didn't do that. And it went on. And then in December of '95, my boyfriend and I were walking the dog, and we saw a UFO. And it was broad daylight, and he kind of teased me about it. He said, oh, it's because you've been reading those books, And I said, shut up, don't tease me. And I said, here, hold the dog. I'm going to run home and report it. So I reported it. And I started going to MUFON meetings because I reported it to MUFON, and they were in the phone book in Los Angeles. And in that same time frame, I had this attack in the night, that December 1995 time frame. I had this attack in the night where I woke up with sleep paralysis. And that had happened to me before in my life here and there, but this time it had other phenomenon associated with it. And when I woke up, and Eric was in the living room watching TV when I woke up. I was sleeping alone, and I heard a voice call my name, like a mechanical sounding voice in my ear while I was in this paralyzed state.
Really?
And then I saw an image of a shotgun pointed at me. It was very disturbing. It was like a terrifying instant of fear. And I just thought, oh, what the heck's going on? This is a bit much. What is happening to me?
Right.
And it was very dark and malevolent, this feeling. And it was when I started going to the MUFON meetings that I heard Kim Carlsberg speak. And she is an abductee who had this dramatic story and had a book. And I, at the end of her talk, I was shaking in the back row. I was like, oh my God, I think I'm one of these people. I don't know why, but I really do. And I was introduced to Barbara Lamb, who's a hypnotherapist. Right. And we set up an appointment, and I went in, and I did a regression. And we targeted that night in December when I had that sleep paralysis attack. I was like, what the heck was that? And I got the full-blown alien abduction scenario that, so many people have heard about. It was very traumatizing. I was, in my memory, I don't trust hypnosis totally. You have to understand that. So I will qualify it by saying, in my memory, whatever that was, I was taken via a blue beam through my ceiling, and then I was in a fetal position, and then I was unfolded, and I was next in some kind of a misty white room on a table, and I was terrified, and I didn't want to look around. I was paralyzed, teeth chattering terror. Right. And Barbara talked me through it, and I was able to look to my left, and I saw this row of beings that were, to me, all the same, all the same looking, all the same position, and they seemed to me to be tall, thin beings with large heads, big black wraparound eyes. They had white robes on. They had a high collar on the robe, and they had some kind of an emblem on their chest, and long, skinny arms. And I was just horrified. I was horrified, immobilized, and she said, "What do they want from you?" And I said, "I have a baby in me, and they want it." And I had this memory of them removing, for lack of a better description, some kind of a very tiny fetus from me. And it was It was horrible. I mean, it was the most invasive, horrifying experience.
Now, let me, if I could stop you just for a
Yeah,
second.
sure.
Now, this. Okay, so this is when you're going through the regression therapy.
Right.
What actually happened? Do you remember any of it, or was there?
No.
I mean, no.
I don't remember any of it. All I remember is the sleep paralysis and the little mechanical voice saying Camille. And the only thing that makes it seem real to me, other than the pure emotional impact of the regression, was the fact that I had no menstrual cycle for those 3 or 4 months, and then my menstrual cycle came back in January, and it matched, like what was going on in my body matched the symptoms of pregnancy.
But now,
and then it was gone.
But now, when you had when you were experiencing the sleep paralysis, that you do remember, correct?
Yes, that was
in real time, if we want to call it.
Right, in real time.
Okay.
Right. So, what do you do with this information? I mean, if this happens to you, and you got to remember, this was 20 years ago. It was still a little bit, risque to look at this information back then. And again, I had a normal life. I didn't have any other weird paranormal things in my background that showed any kind of pattern of this kind of thing. And I was intellectually trying to make sense of it. Like, could this be real? And people would say, oh, maybe it was a screen memory for this or that. Like they said, maybe you had an abortion and you felt guilty about it. And I said, well, that would make sense, except I've never had an abortion. So, okay, next theory, So everything I went through logically didn't add up. And so, my poor boyfriend, he was trying to listen to the tape. I brought the cassette home from Barbara's, and he couldn't stay in the room. I mean, he just was horrified to hear me going through that much trauma. And he was, he knew it was a life changer. I mean, this is like, oh my God, what's happened to my girlfriend? He kind of, it was not a good night. And it just went on. There were more events that happened in this short time period of about a year after that happened. So that was like the first event. And the next one that happened was he was out of town. He was doing a movie back in New Orleans, and I was alone for a week, and I was sleeping alone. This was like June or July. And I woke up 3 nights in a row at 4 a.m. sharp, looking at the alarm clock going, why am I awake? I didn't hear anything. What's going on? And it was like 4:00, and I was like, okay, this is creepy. And the third morning, I was meeting a friend at the beach, and I looked down when I was taking a bath. I was going to shave, and I had these, like, scabbed over triangular puncture wound in my calf. And as soon as I saw it, I knew. I was like, damn it, that's some alien thing. I was really upset.
This ain't right.
And I went to a different hypnotherapist, Yvonne Smith, who's also very well known now. She's got a book out and everything. And it wasn't like I had any problem with Barbara. I just was curious, like, wow, I wonder if I go to a different person if I'm still going to have aliens come up. And sure enough, I had another alien dramatic memory of having this triangle put in my leg in the form of like almost like I would say almost a vaccination kind of experience, with the same tall white beings with the long skinny arms and the big head, only this time it morphed. It had like, for a moment, it had like antenna, and that really freaked me out. And then the antenna went away. And then there were other beings this time, little short, wrinkly ones that were standing all around me, holding me down. And I remember crying and saying, you make me scared of little kids because you're short, but you're not little kids. And it's true. I did have like a fear of children all my life. I never liked babysitting or holding babies or things like that. So that was heavy. And then the next thing that happened was I went to the dentist to get all my fillings changed. I had some good insurance, and, I had a bunch of mercury fillings, and I went in to get all of them taken out and put the white ones in. And they were all fine, and except this one tooth was hurting. And so I went back to the dentist, and I said, they're all great except this one. It's, like, really sensitive, and it won't go away. And he said, well, give it some time, and then if it still hurts you in a few months, I'll redo it. So he ended up having to redo the filling. And when he went in there, he found this mass, this like spherical mass in my tooth that he said was not there before. and it was extremely hard and dense, and he was drilling and drilling and giving me more and more shots. And he showed it to me, and I was like, okay, let's just deal with that another day. And so he kind of just filled it and left it alone, and the pain went away. But that was disturbing to me. And I later did a regression to that, and with Barbara Lamb, and I got what is commonly called a military abduction experience, which really threw me because I was expecting to have an alien experience again, and this time it was people.
The Me Lab.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was more disturbing than the aliens because I thought, my goodness, if that could be part of my reality and I didn't know it until now, what else has happened to me that I don't know about? It was the most terrifying concept, that there's a part of your life that you don't remember. And who knows, what could have happened. And again, I question whether these memories are real, but that's what came up. So I'm just telling people, that's what came up. And it was a very dark time for me. I was very obsessed with the subject, as you could imagine. My acting career just fell into a black hole. I didn't care about it. I was talking compulsively about it, so I felt, this is the most important thing on the planet. Everyone needs to know this is happening, and I was totally out of the closet about it, and I had no discretion at parties. My boyfriend was getting sick of me talking about it. He was mortified. And I was going to anyone and everyone for advice. I was going to channelers, and I would say, what is happening to me and why? And they would tell me something. I went to like 10 different channelers over the years, and they told me 10 different things. And I went to healers, and I met a guy who was a Men in Black, and all this stuff I did to just get to the bottom of it. I was crazy obsessed with figuring it out,
Well, did you kind of? What it sounds like to me, Camille, is when you were. What's the right word? When you were kind of on your little rampage to tell people, maybe that'd be a good way to put it. Did you kind of just feel like you want to tell people about it so you don't think you're crazy? Mm-hmm. You want people to know about it. I know some people keep it seems like some people keep it either very, very private, or other people want to tell everybody.
I was one of those.
Yeah,
I was on a mission. My mission was, oh my God, this is happening on the planet, and you need to know. And I just didn't care. I didn't care if people thought I was crazy. I thought kind of naively that couldn't happen, that because I had a master's degree and because I was a normal person and I was articulate and I looked presentable, that they would just, not think I was crazy and everyone would believe me. And I only asked people, I said, what, I don't care if you think I'm wrong. That's fine. I may be wrong. I'm trying to figure this out. I said, but please just believe that I'm telling you the truth of what happened to me as best as I can explain it. And that's all I ask, is that you trust that I'm not lying. I'm just, I may be wrong. So it went pretty well. I was pretty well received when I gave talks, and my family even put up with it. They hoped I was wrong, but they understood that obviously something real was going on. And I even had an uncle who worked for NASA, his career retired NASA, and I interrogated him and said, Uncle Jack, you got to tell me what the hell is going on, And he said, well, I don't know anything, and if it's aliens, then it's NSA, and they're never going to tell you, and you're just going to have to get over it. That's what he told me. So that didn't help. And then I worked with a lady who I can't find her now. She may have dropped off the face of the earth. I don't know where she is, but her name was Marie Angelique Raphael, and she had an ad in the Whole Lifetime saying she could stop alien abduction. And I thought, what the heck? Call her up. So I visited her little apartment and gave her $100 or whatever, and she told me her spiel, and she said, you've made a spiritual agreement to work with these beings, and you can sever that agreement, but you need to bring in angels to do that. And I said, lady, do your thing, let's do it, bring it on. Right. So we did this little prayer, and she called on Archangel Michael and Saint Germain, and she said, Camille no longer wishes to work with these beings. She severs any contract she may have made in any time, space, dimension, blah, blah, blah. And we did this little prayer, and it was very sweet, and I was crying, and then it was over. It never happened again. And thank God, because for me it was a really bad experience. I mean, I know a lot of people. I was in 2 different support groups for this, and I heard a lot of tales, and I heard a lot of people who really had tough times, and I heard some people who really enjoyed their encounters and were having very interesting times. So I'm not trying to diminish what they think is going on with them, but in my case, I was not having a good time, and it was very disruptive to my life, and I wanted it to stop. So I'm glad I was able to make it stop.
You were able to put an end to it. When you were you worked as a with UFO magazine, you were a contributing editor for 4 years. Did you pretty much concentrate on the abduction phenomena?
No, I mean I did whatever they needed me to do. Actually, I did a review of a play about alien abduction. I did book reviews. I covered the monthly MUFON meetings in Los Angeles for years, which was really fun because I was going to the meetings anyway. So I had a little job now. So I could go to the meetings, and I could make contact with the various authors and experts that were there, and to get their follow-up art and things for the articles. And so it was fun. I got to really meet the best of the best in that research, and all my library is autographed, and I got to have special extra time to talk to all of these amazing researchers. So it was fun. And I did that for a while, and then when I got pregnant with my son, I couldn't handle it. I remember I was covering Conspiracy Con, and it was so depressing and dark, and I was having morning sickness. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Right. So I quit when I had my child.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a now, we actually got a bunch of questions sent in for you. We've got a commercial break coming up in just a couple of minutes, but when do you think that did this abduction phenomena, these abduction scenarios, did they start right after you and your boyfriend of then the time? Did it start right after you saw that UFO?
Yes.
Or do you feel
it was the same month? I mean, I think it was the same week. I wasn't keeping a diary, but definitely it all added up to that December 1995 time frame.
So you don't think they started at an earlier point in time? It actually started then?
They may have. I have childhood symptoms of abduction as far as things like I had severe allergies. I had nosebleeds that were so severe I had to have my nose cauterized. I had paranormal fears as a child. So it could have happened in childhood. I just don't have any confirmation of it happening then.
And you feel now that it's stopped?
I do, definitely. It's been a very long time. And, well, like I said, I went to this lady, and then I worked with some other healers. And for me, I really think it was a spiritual warfare perspective that made it stop, for me. And that's really what I'm sticking to. I did have one experience under hypnosis, which was kind of interesting. I noticed that when the abduction stuff happened, I started saying things like, oh, humans, blah, 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 oh, earthlings. And I was wondering, why am I talking like that? Why am I talking like I'm not one? Mm-hmm. And I had this longing, like I missed some beings, but I didn't know who I missed. And so I went to Barbara Lamb, and I said, Barbara, I have this really weird target for this hypnosis session. I want to target who are the beings that I miss. And so we did that, and I had this amazing out-of-body experience where I was floating above the earth, and there were these light beings, and I was weeping and feeling all this ecstasy, like they're my home. And I don't know what they were. I don't know if they were angels or I don't know what they were. I mean, they could have been deceptive demons, for all I know, appearing as angels. But I had all those feelings of love and being, part of them. And they said, we're here all the time, but it's like we're always sending love down at you, but you guys are like walking around with umbrellas, and we can't get you, But it was very beautiful. I mean, at the time I thought it was a very beautiful experience. And now I'm a little suspicious, but it was still basically a beautiful experience.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Fringe Radio Show. Our guest this morning is Camille James Harman. Camille, again, thank you so much for giving up your night and spending some time with us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I really love, sharing my information for what it's worth. You can stick it on the shelf with everyone else's stories and try to make sense of it, because that's what I did. I mean, for 17 years, well, now it's almost 20 years, I guess, I've been reading everyone's work, collecting information, and I finally moved into a sense of peace about it all. But it was a very long trip down a black hole for a while.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
It sounds like it.
And so I guess what happened next that was significant is I in 1998, I went to England to see the crop circles. And that was really a wonderful trip. Again, Barbara Lamb was there. I hooked up with her. I met some wonderful people, walked around the crop circles. I was a Sting fanatic back then, so I went to Sting's house. I met Sting. I mean, it was really cool. And then I came home, and I had this bumper sticker on my car that said, "I love England." And I was getting gas at this Malibu gas station, and this guy next to me, he looked at my bumper sticker, and he was getting gas, and he asked me, "What part of England do you love?" I said, "Well, Wiltshire. I was just in Wiltshire looking at crop circles." And he said, "Oh, I know all about crop circles. I'm friends with Jim Delatoso, and he analyzed some footage and all this." And anyway, we started talking at the gas station and exchanged business cards. And then we ended up getting married. That's my husband, Jeff.
Aww.
We've been together since 1998.
That's
so
pretty
that
awesome.
Was kind of unusual. And Jeff added a whole other dimension to my research and my thoughts on the matter. Jeff is an astrologer, and he looked at my astrology for when all that was happening in 1995, and he said, "Oh, no wonder you had this going on. You had a progressed moon in the 12th house, you had Saturn return, you had all this stuff." So he was explaining to me astrologically why I had gone through that at that time, and it made total sense to him. And he was really into Kabbalah as well, and he, from Kabbalah, he kind of warned me. He said, "I think these things might be demonic," and I was like, "That's too easy. It's too complicated. That can't be it." But we married. We had our son. We moved to Tucson when Katrina happened to New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans. I got so traumatized watching it on the television. I said, "Jeff, please get me out of Los Angeles. I don't want to live here when the big earthquake hit."
Right.
So we left in 2005 and moved to Tucson, and my only qualifications for Tucson were it had to have Trader Joe's and it had to have a MUFON group. So here we are, and we're still here in Tucson. And but I made friends here with the UFO group here. This is a very big town for UFO research. Actually, Wendell Stevens lived here. Colonel Robert Dean lived. Colonel Wendell Stevens, Robert Dean, lived here. And there was a lot going on in this town. James McDonald taught at the U of A, and he was into UFO research back in the 50s and 60s, I think. But I was finally writing my book. Everyone kept saying, "Camille, write your book. You're going to forget what happened to you." And I said, "Okay." I said, "But I want to have the answer before I write the stupid book." And they all said, "Just write the book anyway, and you may never figure this out." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." So I started writing my book about what happened. And I got to the end chapter, and I didn't know what to do. I hated ending the book with this wishy-washy, "Well, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, and I don't know what it is." And I had really seriously considered, are these aliens? Is this a military mind control project? What are these things? Are they good aliens? Are they bad aliens? Are there both kinds of aliens? Is it a battle? Are they angels? Are they demons? What are they? And so I put out this little prayer. I just prayed. I said, God, I really don't want to lead anyone astray with my book. Please show me. Just cut to the chase. I'm so overwhelmed with theories. Just clear me and show me what really is going on. And, as soon as I made that prayer, things really went into action. And this was a December 2012 time frame. And I read this book, Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls by Nigel Kerner.
Yes, we've had him on the show.
You have? Oh, that's an amazing book. And he went into great detail talking about the Shroud of Turin. And it really warmed my heart again to Jesus. And I'd always loved Jesus, but I had really walked away from religion when I was like 13. And you know, I went to Catholic schools. I was raised Catholic, but I wasn't interested as a young person in all those rules. And you know, I was very sexual, and I just didn't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but my heart was really awakened when I read that book, Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls. And after that book, I read another book, Final Events and the Secret Government Group on Demonic UFOs and the Afterlife by Nick Redfern. And I don't know if you guys know that book, but it's about this alleged group called the Collins Elite that was a government group established to examine the link between the occult and UFOs in the early 50s. And they were founded after Jack Parsons blew himself up in Pasadena doing black magic in his house. And, you know, he was one of the early space program engineers with aerospace and JPL. And I learned that there were a lot of people in the early space industry that were occultists, and they were messing around with some dangerous stuff. And they seemed to have brought in some beings. And the premise of this book was that these guys in the Collins Elite were saying, you know what, our government got involved with these beings for technology, but then they realized these beings were not extraterrestrial, that they were demonic, and that they had made deals with them, and then they were doing black magic to try to get the upper hand on the situation, and they were just screwed. Like they'd really gotten in over their head. And these guys were in a moral dilemma about, you know, what to do about this. So that book blew my mind. The idea that what if the big secret isn't that aliens are real? What if the big secret is that the government wants you to think it's aliens actually, but the truth is much darker, that they've actually been involved with demons presenting themselves as aliens? And that just blew my mind. That just blew my mind. And, you know, then I started reading some more books along these lines of this whole aliens or demons theory, and they're mostly written by Christians of various types, evangelicals, Jehovah's Witnesses, who knows, all different kinds of Christians, not Catholics, I must say. But these books that I started to read that I had always ignored or not even known existed, they started to really, you know, capture my attention. And there were testimonials in there of people who had stopped the aliens by calling on Jesus. And I had a story where that had happened to me. And I thought, how come I've never heard this at a UFO conference? I was so angry. I was like, why is this not at the UFO conferences? Why are these Christians, like, preaching to the choir, and then the UFO people are all wrapped up in New Age ideas, right, and there's no intermingling, it seemed to me. Now, maybe I'm just wrong, but I had gone to quite a few UFO conferences, and I'd never heard these theories, and I got really angry. And you know, this is my story, and some people are not going to like it. A lot of my New Age friends feel like I have given up the search for the truth, blah, blah, blah. And but what happened to me is as soon as I gave over to this idea of that aliens might just be demons just tricking us in all these various guises with all these various storylines and where they're from and blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, wow, okay, God, is this your answer to me? Is it this simple? I mean, I feel like an idiot if this is the answer, you know. And as soon as I gave over to that feeling, I had such an incredible, what would be called a born-again experience, right? I mean, I felt this submission to God. I felt this incredible remorse. I felt idolatrous. I had this feeling like, okay, I am a creature and you are the creator, and I am not supposed to try to be you. I am supposed to submit, and I do not have the intelligence to understand this. This is beyond me, and I give up, and I just want your protection, and I'm sorry that I have given these beings, you know, all kinds of honor. I mean, because I was falling into the you know, even though my experiences were traumatic, there's a lot of seduction in the UFO community into this idea that, oh, the aliens created us and the aliens are going to save us. And I think that's very dangerous for people to think that. And I can see why they think that, because I thought that for a while. I went down that road. But then when I stopped and I chose this road, I felt like this velvet blanket of grace fall on my life that was so powerful. And my husband was like, "Oh my God!" And it's so funny because he had predicted my spiritual. He said, "You're going to have some spiritual awakening." You know, he had looked at my astrology and said that, and I was like, "Okay, whatever." You know, I didn't know it was going to be this. So when this happened to me, he was like, "What is happening to my wife?" You know, and he was like, "Okay, Camille, you know, you don't have to join a church. You can just have this feeling and love Jesus and just, you know, don't go nuts." And but that didn't happen. So I ended up going back to the Catholic Church. And, you know, people have problems with that. They're like, "Oh, how can you be Catholic?" Blah, blah, blah. But I tell you what, I love my religion. I cannot tell you how beautiful it is and how much it has given me what I need. And it has so many answers and so much wisdom for things like spiritual discernment. Because, you know, in the paranormal world, we get so excited about anything paranormal that it's like, "Oh, cool," you know, and we think it's all good, or we think it's all safe to explore, but you know, it may not be. And the problem that people don't remember is that the dark forces are extremely intelligent and deceptive, and they lie. And so, you know, people, they'll think, "Oh, well, it was this, you know, wonderful experience," and there's a part of me that just, I cannot trust that. I cannot trust these so-called benefic aliens and light beings and all this kind of stuff. I just can't go there. So that's what I've chosen. Now, a lot of people don't like my choice. I mean, you know, this is not something a lot of people want to hear. But that's what happened to me.
They're hard to, I think the biggest thing is when you look at the whole picture and when you do the research and you listen to different experiencers, different researchers, different, you know, people like yourself, because so many people have opinions and views on it. Mm-hmm. I don't think, you know, it's just trying to define this whole thing that's probably the most complicated of them all. All.
Yeah.
It's the definition of what you're really dealing with. Are you really, you know, are you dealing with an interdimensional being? Are you dealing with, you know, are you dealing with an extraterrestrial? Are you dealing with a fallen angel, a demonic being?
Right.
Or is it, you know, don't take it the wrong way. Is it a hallucination in your own mind, or in, you know? I mean, it's just nobody.
I'm with you.
Nobody has the solid answer.
And I'm not trying to throw everything out the window. I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I really do respect the researchers that are still in this field, trying to figure it out. I respect that people are seeing, you know, stuff on the moon and stuff on Mars, and that, you know, I'm not saying there are no UFOs. I'm not saying that there's, you know, I'm not saying it's all an illusion. I'm saying that if I were the devil and I wanted to pull people away from God, I would appear to this culture in this day and age and say, I'm an alien, and I created you, and I built the pyramids, and I built this, and I built that, and guess what? We're going to save you. And Jesus, oh yeah, Jesus was just a cool guy, but, you know, he isn't what you guys think he was. And that's what's happening. That's what these creatures are telling people. And I think that's very dangerous. And what I love about the Catholic Church, you know, people bust on Catholicism because it's had its problems. It's been around forever. It is an organization run by men, you know, for 2,000 years. But I tell you what, they have experience and they have knowledge in dealing with this type of thing.
Camille,
they have guidelines, and it's really useful.